Welcome to the Rest Round with Butch Hiles and Gary Hashman.
I'm 44, and if I stay up late and watch those MMA fights or boxing matches, and don't make it to bed till 12:45 or 1, I wake up the next day without drinking an ounce of alcohol and feel hungover.
Yeah, that's how I felt all day till just like 10 minutes ago.
If I feel like garbage, if I eat sugar, cookies, or stuff like that, I feel like garbage.
Yeah, me too. And I don't know why I still want to do it.
Exactly right. And the thing that I always do, this is how I found that I get the most out of the day every day, is for me to go hard all day long without breaks and staying completely focused. I need to sleep well. I need to sleep 6 to 7 solid sound hours. And really 7 is more that sweet spot for me, or slightly less. And to do that, I need to exercise rigorously towards the end of the day. So if I have a solid, really high, output, like HIIT workout, no more than an hour, and most of the time they're boxing workouts or something, at about 4:30 p.m., have dinner with the family, wrap up whatever else I need to wrap up, help with homework and stuff. By the time 10 o'clock rolls around, I'm out ready. I'm ready to go to bed, and I sleep hard till about 5:30, and then start the whole cycle over again. I can maintain that for a really long period of time.
Yeah, well, and that'd be a good thing for us to start with, because I think that's kind of like the last few things that I've been talking about is, one, I've been getting a lot of different owners of gyms on and talking like training philosophy type stuff. But I think what I'm looking for is exactly what you just said, is that we talk about the benefits of the training all the time. So every time I'm on here with like another guy that does, jiu-jitsu, MMA, boxing, whatever it is, we're always like talking about the mental health aspects, right? And how this kind of fixes us. It changes it. Like if I'm really stressed, just like I said yesterday. And I do think that's one of the things I was missing yesterday. So unfortunately for my job, like I'm medical device sales, so I drive around a lot all day, right? So I'll drive 3 hours, have like a 20-minute lunch, drive 3 hours back, right? But ideally, somewhere if I could work out there, it fixes everything, and it does exactly kind of what you're saying. But unfortunately, sometimes I don't. Like then the family needs me, and I'm like, all right. So I rushed home. So for example, yesterday, barely made it back to Charleston at 3, had some eye appointment, doctor, I had to do that. Then I get back. So there's no working out. So because of that, I just feel different all night. Like, so I'm watching TV, everything's fine. I'm having a good time with the family, but there's just not that calmness. Does that make sense? Like where I'm also going to sleep good because I've got it all out of all that energy out. So what ended up happening, I watched the Lakers game last night. I'm not the biggest Lakers fan. I like LeBron because I'm from Cleveland. But also I don't care. Like if he loses or wins, I don't really care. But I was up at like 1 a.m. Like I still wound up. And it wasn't because they won. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm not that big of a fan. Like, it was cool they won, but I'm over it. Like, I barely stayed up, and then all of a sudden I'm wired. So I'm like, that's what I'm missing. And that's where, I guess, on some hands, it sounds like you have a schedule that I like. What I was going to say is like people that wake up early and take care of it, I love it. I'm not that guy. So it has to be later. Plus, I feel like I don't sleep well, unfortunately. So if I'm wore out all day, then I'm going to replace that like, even though I'm calm, I'm going to replace it with caffeine all day. And then I'm going to have another
junk food.
Yes, exactly. So I do like the evening. So have you found like that's your kind of your deal, or what?
That's my jam, man. Like for me to go hard all day long and remain focused and do everything that I need to do, I have to sleep well. For me to sleep well, I've got to really work out. So my day is like this. I wake up between 5 and 5:30, and I go downstairs and I have a cup of coffee by myself. Sometimes my wife's up with me. She'll always come downstairs 5:45ish or 6 o'clock-ish kind of range. And then, the kids, we get to go up and get them. And then it's just stuff going on all morning long, getting them ready for school, dividing and conquering. And then I start work. So 3 times out of the week, I might take the kids to school, and the other 2 times I might be running off to catch a 7:30 or an 8 a.m. meeting, and then the day starts, and go hard all day long until about 4:30, and that's when I get my workout in. And I'm probably doing it 5 days a week. There's some weeks where I only get it done 3 times. There's other weeks where I might get it done 6. But really high intensity workout for an hour, and it's always boxing, conditioning kind of stuff, and mitt work and bag work. Sometimes I'll spar. If I do that, it's a little bit more in the evening time. 5:36 time frame at the gym, but that I always sleep well, too. But I need that rigorous exercise in the evening time, and then it's family time, have dinner together, help with homework, get caught up on other work that I need to get done. My daughter and I have this bedtime routine. She's 10 and she still wants me to put her to bed most nights, and do that, and then hang out with my wife and rest up. We'll either read or we'll watch something funny together on TV, and then go to bed and repeat the whole thing.
So what do you think if you didn't have that workout? What do you think your day would be like? What do you think the next day would be like, and the next day after that? You know what I'm saying? It kind of
it's a cycle. It affects my sleep. I don't sleep as sound. I don't go to bed as early. I don't get that sound rest. Mind races. You gravitate more towards junk food. You can't stay focused. And I like to be disciplined and focused all day long and do what really is important. And it affects all that stuff. And, dude, if we're honest with ourselves and our personalities, you and I are probably dopamine seekers. Yeah. And that's where the drive for the workout, the rush and the competition and competing in some sort of combat, it all comes from that. And also for me personally, I've been sober since 2004 from alcohol. I used just about every drug underneath the sun, but alcohol was my real demon. And, that's that kind of risk-seeking type of behavior as well. Kind of comes with that. Same thing with food, eating sugary food, eating junk food. And I just transitioned that into being really, really focused on, work and family and what's important. And that it ties that whole system together. And I use that whole dopamine seeking type of behavior. And I've got the ability and the aptitude to analyze stuff mathematically through business decisions, to then see stuff other people can't. And that's how we've kind of built and grown our business too. So it's taking what our individual personality traits are, which can be weaknesses, and turning them into strengths. Yeah.
Well, and it's being self-accountable, right? Like that is the biggest thing, because what you just said is exactly right. I think a lot of people don't know they're a dopamine junkie, right? And you're looking for that hit, whether it's for stress relief. Like, for example, like I had a horrible week last week. It just seemed like the world was crashing down, right? Even knowing that the decisions I was going to make were bad decisions, I knowingly did them on purpose, like honestly, because I knew why I was making decisions, meaning I was like, man, I just want to feel better. I want to get rid of this mental fog. And so for that, it was getting a big giant birthday cake and eating it with some ice cream, right? So it was a bad decision. And to top it off, it wasn't like I didn't work out. I worked out. I still couldn't get rid of the stress. So I was like, look, man, I'm just going to do it. I know it's temporary pleasure of the mouth, right? But for that 10 or 15 minutes, even though it's going to affect the rest of my day tomorrow and the next day, and that's the problem. It's a vicious cycle, right? Like you wake up the next day and you're like, you had the sugar dump, right? The glucose dump. So you're like, man, I need some more of that. And then trapped in that whole thing.
And it's this self-perpetuating cycle. And it's really similar to addictions as well. I mean, I think sugar may be the most addictive drug on planet Earth, by the way.
And I agree with that, because I know 100% that it's not good for me, 100%. And this is what I've joked with people too. I don't know what it's like to have a drug addiction or anything else, but this is not a joke. If I know somebody had cake at the house, it could, and I'm saying cake, it could be Reese cups, it could be whatever. I will lay in bed and I'll be like, I know there's 4 Reese cups left. Like I will just think about those Reese cups. And then I have this mental battle all night where I was like, I should just get up and eat them. And then I'm like, no, you're too fat.
Are you like me? Are you a fat kid at heart? I'm a fat kid at heart.
100%. And and I don't have a cutoff switch, unfortunately.
I don't either.
Yes. Yeah. I will eat till I throw up. Like it's not good.
If one brownie's great, then why not have 7?
Yeah. I'm like, what kind of person quits on these? Let's eat.
Right. And that's the exact same reason why I had to get sober. Like I had to, because I had no shut off point. That stuff's not good for me at all. I can't. There are people that can drink alcohol in moderation and use drugs in moderation. I can't. I can't do it.
Yeah, and I agree. And that's what happened during the pandemic. I don't know if we talked about that or not, but same thing happened. Everybody started day drinking, right? The pandemic had nothing to do. It's like the in thing to do. And then at some point, it was like every day I was drinking. And then I got to the point where I knew it was dangerous. I started liking alcohol. There was never a point where I enjoyed a drink, right? Like I drank it, but it was like a social lubricant. Then all of a sudden I was like, man, I got into these stupid 4 Locos from Go-Mart because they're so simple,
Oh, buddy, those things are sturdy.
Yes. Yeah. And they're like 15% alcohol filled with sugar. So it had
to be loaded with caffeine and like taurine and stuff like that too.
Yeah. So that, yeah, after you're all messed up, you can't calm down. So yeah, that's why they banned it. I guess people are drinking them and robbing banks or something. I don't know. It wasn't good.
What everybody needs.
Yeah, exactly. So that, yeah, and it was the same thing. And so I know, and I think that's, transition to this stuff. I think that's why we're all kind of built the same, right? Like I always say, like we're replacing, and we was kind of talking about that kind of high with another high, and that high is, whether it's working out or getting punched in the face or not getting punched in the face, that little bit of drama there, right? Like there's a different thing.
It's that there's something about it that, you can't get it out of your system. It's that constant rush that happens. And I even get that out of sparring, even when you're tired and you get to the second and third and fourth rounds, it's that, oh my gosh, here it is. And afterwards, it's the same thing that still, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, there's still nothing like the dopamine rush that you get from an actual fight.
No, yeah.
From the actual like combat sport. That is just, that's the best there is, man.
It's a different thing. Yeah, like I remember my first boxing match, I think it was 1997. Well, my first one here in West Virginia, but like I remember after the first round going back to the corner and telling my trainer, which is Leon Ramsey, I don't know if you know, he's like commissioner.
I know, yeah.
But it was like, I was like, I think I'm floating. I didn't even know what that meant. And he's like, what? I said, I feel like I'm floating. And he's like, did you get hit? I was like, not that I remember, but I almost feel like I'm knocked out. And he's like, you just need to calm down. Like I was so nervous that I couldn't even feel the ground under my feet. Right. But then after the adrenaline dump and after the round, then you kind of settle in, and then it's fun. Then it's the thing. And of course, afterwards it's fun. But yeah, there's nothing like that. Yeah, you either get out and you never want to do it again, or you're like, yeah, I'm in, right? And I've got friends like that. Like I just had a podcast the other day with my friend Dan. That guy would compete like 3 times a weekend back in the day, like back when they didn't have internet, like that's how old we are. But he would just change his name, because like somebody would know, and he'd be like, all right, then I'm Dan Boyd tonight. And he would box one night, do MMA one night, jiu-jitsu competition the other night. But I was like, man, why you do that? And he said, man, I just love the feeling. I can't get enough of it, And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I don't love it that much. That's a little different than mine, but yeah, it's a special, and nobody else would get that because like on paper, we talked about that earlier. Like somebody would look at, like an old lady would look like, what, like, why you want to punch me in the face or get punched in the face, right? It's such a hard thing to explain.
And it's such a thinking game as well, because not only are you thinking about what this other guy is doing, but then you're thinking the entire time about how you're going to respond. And when you get hit, if you're not really clear and focused and have control of your body, like that fight or flight kicks in.
Yes.
But if you are in focus and you have control of your body and what's going on in your mind, and you get hit, it teaches you how to adapt. And it relates so much, at least for me personally, with life, because life is never a clear-cut plan. You've got to have constant contingency plans and know how to think and adapt on your feet all the time. And if you're able to do that, which is what combat sports always help me do, you can adapt to any situation. There's nothing that can, and that's the other funny thing. You walk into business meetings or something, like there's nothing that can happen that is anywhere near as tough as being in the third round of a fight and you're exhausted and you've got to figure out a way to win. Like there's nothing in a business situation that, it all pales in comparison. So.
Yeah. And I think for somebody, to get into kind of more of our discussion, I think for somebody that doesn't understand that, I think that's what we need to do is make them understand is that's what you want. You want somebody that's not like, just like I said, pressure got rough. I came home and ate a birthday cake, right? So that's one way out. But what about the other guy that's like, hey, I don't have this birthday cake. I got to figure out this problem and I got to get it over it. Now, I really did do that. I did.
I know you're not exaggerating. I've done that before myself.
Yeah, I really did do that. But there wasn't like, I'm just going to wallow in this and then I'm going to avoid my problems. It's like, hey, I'm going to get this little feeling good point so I can get my head straight and then back on the thing. But I think that's important. So going off that, like, did you come up with a name or somebody else come up with a fighting governor name that they're using now?
They came up with it. The Rough and Rowdy guys did, and it just stuck. So I'll take it, right? I think nicknames are earned. They're not self-given, and it was just one of those things that apparently I earned. And the really cool thing was listening to Portnoy and those other guys constantly saying it over and over again during broadcasts. That's pretty cool. I was in Rough and Rowdy last night in Huntington, and they introduced me, ringside as the fighting governor, and the camera was on me, and the crowd erupts. I mean, it was really a cool experience. They just kept cheering and clapping. It was, I guess it stuck, Butch.
It's a big thing. And I think some of them, people, to kind of finish that thought that I'm having, is that I think some are on superficial, meaning the fighting governor, that's a guy that fights. I think about that. That's cool, right? But at the same breath also is, hey, I'm the guy that's going to be fighting for you, and I'm not going to give up, and I'm going to do those things. So it's kind of like, it's really interesting dichotomy of the word, actually, I think.
And man, politicians are wussies. Most of them are bureaucrats and weasels and wussies. And I think that we're living in this weird time where masculinity has been shamed because of this woke ideology. And there's a clear difference between male and female. And we are wired a certain way. And I think it's something, just like femininity is something that's special and unique and should be celebrated. Masculinity is the same thing. And just because just because you and I are guys that are a little bit more on the masculine type side doesn't mean that we're a-holes either, right? We're smart, we're cerebral, we think, but there's something about our culture right now where we need a lot more tough, strong men, because I think we're right in the middle of that process where, strong men make good times make weak men, weak men make bad times make strong men. And this is just kind of the starting of that whole strong men thing kind of coming back along in that cycle. And that's where our role really is going to be when it comes to leading in our community, leading with our families, leading by example. And it's nothing to be ashamed of at all. I think it's something that should be celebrated.
No, and there's some really good quotes from people, whether you like them or not, but I there's one that I see on Instagram a lot from Jordan Peterson, and he's, some controversial for some people, but
I love him.
Yeah, I do too. And he has that thing, I'll misquote it, but it was just like, how about being like a strong man and a man that can do harm, but learning how to control it. And I think that's the part people don't get. Just because you train or do what we do, or you're acting a certain way, you need to learn how to control that, because there's a time that you need that. Like, that's the other thing. Things are so crazy after the pandemic. People are so ramped up. I think they forgot how to be humans, how to be social. There's fights, people getting punched for no reason. Now is the time that you need those people to protect you, right? Like, and even that sounds bad, but there's numerous, I have a friend, Tom DeBlas, that posts videos all the time that are like, and that's what he's trying to push, is that, and it'll be people beating up women. And he'll say, look at all the men in this room that did nothing. They just sat there.
Right.
Yeah. And they just videoed it. Where's the guy that stands up and says, hey man, if you do that, we're going to have a problem. And he's able to control it. So he's not out there doing the same thing that other crazy person's doing. Right. And again, the other quote I'm thinking of is, I'd rather be a gardener, like learning how to fight, right? Do you know the quote I'm talking about? A warrior.
Yeah. I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener during a war.
Yes, exactly. So that's the guy that you've trained, you've got all the skills, and you're ready when the time is called upon you, but you're not out there. You
never have to use it.
Yes.
Right? Being completely and utterly prepared and hoping you never have to use it. But guess what? If you do, it matters, because if there are no sheepdogs, the wolves devour the flock.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we're seeing right now, right? It's
yes.
People, like I said, they're hyped up, they're desperate. Some of them, like, they are desperate, right? This pandemic took stuff out of people, right? And I'm not saying what people are doing is right at any meaning of the word. Like, they're robbing people, they're stealing things. There's some of the laws are a little bit out of control in certain places, but where are the people putting these people in their place, right? And I don't even in a bad way. I don't want conflict either, but the fact that there is no confrontation, there is no conflict, that there is no repercussions for some of these things, I think is what we're saying, man. That's not good.
It's interesting though, because what you're describing all literally rolls back into our state of West Virginia. I don't know if you see it here. That's a map I keep in my basement all the time, and that is a hydrological map of the state of West Virginia. Which, one of the really unique things about us is that if you think about it, we've got more of what everybody wants and is looking for than anybody else. And in March of 2020, when COVID hit, I started a data company because I was really curious to see what was going to happen. Anytime throughout history we've had a pandemic, influenza, bubonic plague, Spanish flu, it's all the same thing. You get a ruling government entity that creates a set of guidelines or policies, and then human beings that respond to it. And the data is overwhelmingly clear in that we are in the beginning stages of a demographic shift in our country. And it's not as simple as California to Texas, New York, and New Jersey to Florida. It's much more ingrained in a bunch of stuff. But like, you can trace it and look at the data. And it's when the Black Lives Matter Antifa rioting stuff started happening, people got really, really, really uneasy. And you can see it inside of the digital data and the movement, what people started looking for and what was said on social media and online.
Mm-hmm.
And then going back to what you were talking about, when we locked a bunch of people down in urban areas surrounded by concrete, and they couldn't go to the gym, they couldn't go get their haircuts, they couldn't go see movies or comedy shows, they couldn't go see friends and family, dramatic increase in the consumption of alcohol during that time. And it was bad for us. But then there was other stuff that was screaming inside of the data that is further forcing some of this movement, which is, if you had health issues during the pandemic, lack of access to healthcare was incredible. Insulin supply chains were messed up. If you wanted to have an elective procedure or gallstone surgery or something like that, people were waiting 5 to 7 times as long to get in to have those procedures done. And if you had a baby during the pandemic and then had complications after you were let out of the hospital, there's tens of thousands upon tens of thousands of cases of people waiting 18, 24, 36 hours inside of an ER before they were seen again. You talk about messing with the maternal instinct, right? First thing that said when they get out, when they leave, is that we got to get out of here. And that's wired in the emotional protective instincts of the female after that. And all of this stuff is kind of forcing this movement in our country. And West Virginia, man, we've got what everybody is looking for based on the data. We've got all these hills and trees and rivers and streams. We've got this focus of family inside of our way of life. We're really, really fun and kind and good to each other. But we also, we're incredibly safe. You know what doesn't happen in West Virginia? Antifa riots. You want to know why? Because there's a bunch of guys like you and me, and then you got the good old boys back in the mountains that wouldn't tolerate that kind of crap either. And not only that, but we have a high quality of life and a low cost of living. And all that stuff adds up to where the dynamics and landscape of our country are shifting, and West Virginia has this really unique opportunity in the middle of that to do something incredible and different. And that really is exciting to me, because I love this state, man. This is just a fantastic state with special people inside of it. Really is.
Yeah, and I had, I moved here from Cleveland when I was 19, right? So, and I'll be honest, when I first came here, I hated it, right? Because I'm from the city, right? And I couldn't compare it to anything. And on top of that, moved straight from Cleveland to Glenville. And Glenville, West Virginia, if anybody's been, has nothing. So you have to drive. At the time I was there, I think there's a little bit more now, but there was a McDonald's and a Pizza Hut. And then if you wanted to go to the movies, you had to drive to Weston to a movie theater. It doesn't even exist anymore. And then there was a Walmart there. And then everything else was an hour away. You had to go to Clarksburg or Charleston to go to the mall. And I mean, it's literally in the middle of nowhere. And I remember asking people early on, I was like, man, what do you guys do for fun? And they're like, well, we hunt and fish and 4-wheeler ride. And, I'm like, well, that's all out. This is going to be horrible. Right. But then ultimately what changed my mind was the people. And I'm the best at that, because I knew no different. Right. Meaning that, and I always tell this straight too, in Cleveland, there's just this thing you do. When I see somebody, we stare at each other in the eyes, and it's a stare down. Literally you'll walk and we don't unlock eyes. And it's the first one it does, you're almost giving up. It's a city thing. It's you're just trying to show who's harder, and don't mess with me, because you're on edge, right? Everybody's a threat. There's so many people. I don't know who's a threat. So I'm kind of looking at everybody as a threat. They're looking at me, and then we're letting them know, hey, I see you. Don't mess with me. Right. And then when I came here, I had that kind of same attitude. And then I'm staring at somebody, and then they give the little wave or the head nod. And I'm like, the heck's wrong with that guy? Right. And then I asked my cousins, I was like, what's wrong with these people? He's like, they're just saying hi, man. That's what we do. And then
they're
it changed.
nice to each other. What the heck?
Yeah, I was like, okay, well, this is and this is the place that I would want to raise a family, and this is why I stayed, right? And there's some other reasons. It's different.
And you also you hear countless story after story of people that are stranded in the back roads of West Virginia trying to get somewhere like Snowshoe and their car breaks down, people here stop and want to help you.
Yes.
And it's not like a risk at all, as in, if you're in a big city, you're outside of a big city on, a highway, and you either A, see somebody stranded on the road, that person could be a danger, or B, the person that's stopping to try, for somebody there on the road could be a danger. And it's just not the same thing here, man. The people that are stopping are there to help you and they care about you. It's just different.
It's different. And I think the opportunity for people is immense, right? Because people are willing to let you have the opportunity. Obviously I started a gym here in, the 2000s or whatever. And it's been huge because I think in my case, the opportunity for me was to make our gym part of the community. It wasn't just a business. And in fact, we didn't run it as a business hardly at all, because I didn't want my hobby to become a business and then ruin my fun. Right.
Yeah, I get it.
We fought that as long as we could fight that. And we gave up, because if it doesn't run like a business, it's also going to shut down. Right?
Exactly.
So there's that. But the point is like, that's what people always ask me, especially for work. They're, why don't you move here? Why don't you move there? And one of the things really is that I was like, man, I feel like I'm in ground in my community, that people really enjoy having us there. They want us there. And there's a feeling that I can't explain to you, that I'd feel like I'm letting people down. And maybe I'm not, but that's what I'd feel like. I feel like I give an opportunity, and it sounds funny because we're mostly a martial arts gym, but people get to go and they find like-minded people. And there's some people at my gym, like there's other people say, oh, they're a bunch of weirdos. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. Like I want those people to have an outlet, and I want them to, try to better themselves and be something. And then also have a place where they're not kind of judged. Right.
They're your weirdos, man. Isn't that kind of way their friends are?
Yeah, well, I'm a weirdo too. That's the other thing. I'm not immune from that.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're all weird.
They're my weirdos.
Yeah. And I think that there's something beautiful in that, and there's something beautiful in that community. And I mean, like even the church that we go to, most of my wife goes, to be honest, I go, every holiday or something. So let's say that. But they're very accepting people. Like, and you would not think, this is just me, maybe my preconceived notion from coming from Ohio, from coming from Cleveland. I expected now I like Dukes of Hazzard, but I guess I'm going off the rebel flag, that they would not be accepting people, which that they were very nice people in the show. It's a fake show, but that's kind of what I expected at church, is that they maybe wouldn't like certain kind of people, like maybe people that are living together that aren't married, or, sleeping together that aren't married, or gay couples or whatever. And it's not that way. They do not care. They literally accept everybody. Now that might not be everybody, but the majority, 100%. I think that's a beautiful thing too. And maybe something that people don't know. Like I would think that from out of state, maybe they have the preconceived notions that I have, that maybe people are a little standoffish or not, cool with certain things, but it is not the case whatsoever. It's a beautiful place.
Not at all.
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, what's the rest of your day like today, Butch?
Well, we got those fights going on tonight. So I'm a little, I'm excited because we have some fights fell through. So we have some guys at our gym are still fighting, but some fell through. But I know, being in this community, I know somebody pretty much from every gym. So knowing that, like, I'm pretty excited to watch some people compete tonight. There's some jiu-jitsu, boxing, kickboxing, MMA. And that's exactly like, we're going to be in a place that has my kind of people, all a little bit weird, a little bit crazy. And we're going to have some fun.
Same. I get to go there and hang out, and I think I'm gonna bring my son up. My 16-year-old's gonna come up with me, and we're gonna hang out, and watch some fights, and have a good time.
Yeah, well, and that's what I meant. I was like, my kids got basketball, unfortunately, which is not sad they have basketball. But I wish they were there with me. Man.
Yeah, that you're missing it, right?
Yeah, and that's a good place. Like, has your son been able to? He's probably watched you fight. I'm sure, right?
Oh, yeah.
What does he train? Does he want to, or no?
So he wrestles. And tough kid. He's a sophomore. This is his first year wrestling, and he really competed. He could actually place in certain tournaments if there were AA teams there. So he coming right along. I told him his first year, don't be expected to win a match. You're going to get your brakes beaten off by kids that have been wrestling since they're 7. And he did a lot better than we expected, and he loves it to death. So he's going to do wrestling camps this summer, and stick with it. He has really good hand-eye coordination. And he's got naturally fast, heavy hands. He would be good at mixed martial arts or boxing as well, but he hadn't done that
No,
But you don't want to push them into doing anything they don't want to do. And so that's the thing I learned parenting a long time ago. As soon as you're really excited and fired up, get them to try it, and it's almost like they don't want to. But if you just provide that constant guidance and support and go, hey, think about this, or hey, maybe this, and show them stuff, then it becomes much more open. When it's their idea, it's always going to be so much more enjoyable for them than it is for us.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the same thing. It's like on one hand, like I had, my two youngest kids competed in a jiu-jitsu tournament, and I couldn't have been more proud, right? It was pretty awesome, right? But that doesn't mean that because the other one didn't, that I care any less. It's like, I'm with you. It's like my thing. I run the gym, my name's on the door. So it's not anything they really want to do. I think they only entered that tournament. Well, actually, I know the only reason they entered that tournament is because they saw me buy the medals, and they're like, I want one of those medals. And I was like, the only way you can get that is to earn it. So they showed up, right? So
whatever works, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And it changed some things. And, like I said, man, it's awesome to do that, all together. And so hopefully, same thing. I think if we show a certain thing, that's the same thing with working out. I think my wife and I has always thought that. We've never said like, hey, like my wife loves CrossFit. The kids have done CrossFit, but she doesn't make them. I think if they see us working out, whether it's jiu-jitsu, MMA, CrossFit, that stuff will rub off and then hopefully build healthy habits,
That's exactly right. Butch, man, I wish we lived in the same city.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would love for you to be able to teach me and my kids jiu-jitsu.
Well, the same, man. I mean, luckily, man, you have a tight schedule anyway. You did come to the gym for a long time, but it was tough, wasn't it?
Very, very. We had to do it like, at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, how often are you in Charleston now? Very often? Hardly, not.
1 or 2 days a week.
Yeah. And how many locations do you guys have? Like, probably way more than that.
We've got 13 dealerships and 26 total enterprises. When I got involved in the family businesses, we had 2 dealerships and 1 real estate company. And I got involved and systematically grew this sucker. We got 26 total businesses that, that I'm running at, any given time. And, between that and work, and now I got the governor's campaign coming up. I'm running for governor of West Virginia in 2024. And it's a lot, but it's a good thing because I can handle a lot of high paced stuff. I can think fast, I can work hard, and that's where I'm going to get everybody is I'm just going to outwork them all.
Yeah.
So doing everything I need to be doing, jumping around the state, meeting people, talking to groups, and raising money and that's the problem with politics. It's still, it's not about ideas before it's about money. And you've got to raise money. You've got to raise a bunch of money. And that's just one of the things you got to do to actually do good in the world and do good in the state when it comes to service, because that's what politics is supposed to be about, right? Yeah. It's supposed to be about service. And our state has this really interesting opportunity in front of it because we have a financial catastrophe coming, but we're also living during this time where what we have people want, and we can do something incredible with it. And so to kind of summarize it, the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, put pressure on rural states like West Virginia for Medicare and Medicaid expansion. We've had a declining population for 35 years up until the pandemic hit, and we also have an aging population. And what happens is our DHHR's budget continues to swell up and raise until it affects the bond rating statewide and dramatically raises the cost of government. And we don't have a productive tax base below it to justify that big bloated existence. And that's when the deep austerity starts. And depending on the actuarial model you look at, it's between 8 and 12 years from now is when that happens, and it'll be a bad day for the state of West Virginia. It will be a bad, bad day. But the good news is there's a major opportunity in front of us as well. And this is what I want to leave you with, which is you think about what we have in the time that we're living in, where technology is continuing to grow and everything is being plugged in our utility grid systems, and you have to have power to manage this growth of technology. We have an incredible amount of power. We have an abundance of coal. We have an abundance of natural gas. We also now have the potential for nuclear. And back to that map up there, right? If you look at our state on a map, because of the continental divide in the aquifer system, more water passes through the state of West Virginia than any other state in the country. We have this incredibly intricate river system. And we also, legally speaking, own the Ohio River to the border of Ohio. And that's ours. Think about what's happening geopolitically too. Putin's into Ukraine because that's the direct line of natural gas in Europe. And so you've got these European countries that are realizing, A, we need alternative sources for natural gas, but B, because of this crazy, stupid environmental stuff, they decommissioned a lot of their nuclear power plants. And you can't get those things back up and going anymore. So they are now opening up coal-fired power plants. Even the Germans, who swore up and down that they were going to be green, blah, blah, blah. Now they're opening up coal-fired power plants. And West Virginia has all this coal. We've got all this natural gas. We have the potential for nuclear and the water function. Arizona reservoirs drying up, the Colorado River's drying up, the dams in Nevada are shrinking, California's in a virtual drought, and we are the birthplace of water for the East Coast. So what I'm going to do to solve the population issue, because in order for us to fix the financial scenario that's coming, all we got to do is add 200 to 300,000 people to our state over the next 10 to 12 years. I'm going to leverage all this water and drive down the cost of power for our people. With all the coal, all the natural gas, the potential for nuclear, and all this water, we are going to be the state in the union that has the cheapest power out there, and use that for economic growth and economic development. And also, you think about the other function of that, we've been extracted for way too long, right? They've taken our coal, they've taken our natural gas. We don't have a lot to show for it. We're going to do something for the people. And if you think, you think about Ma and Paul Kettle and their white picket fence, and both of them are on Social Security. You cut their power bill in half, you've done something impactful for their lives. And also that'll be the mechanism, the reason why the business and growth and in commerce comes to us, because everybody's going to have power. And it also becomes our value added in the coming economy, because the rest of the world is going to need it. The rest of the country is going to need it. And we can turn West Virginia into the power plant or the battery of the East Coast, and also not only have the cheapest power out there, but then also export power. And that's where the game has changed. And we can totally move our state into the 21st and the 22nd century, solve a major financial calamity, and do something for our people all at the same time, and literally change completely what our role is for the rest of the country and the world. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Well, I think that's huge. I think, a lot of times you hear people complain about this and that. And this is what I always say, to everybody in my job or everything else, like, okay, I hear your problem. What's the solution? Right.
Yep.
Yeah. And a lot of times people don't have a solution. They'll just keep repeating the same problem with no solution. But when I hear you talk, you've thought it out well. You've got solutions, you've got things. And I'm sure, just like a fight, right? Things change. We've got to pivot. We got to do some things, and that's what you're going to do. And on top of that, if I was somebody just looking on the outside, when we talk about businesses, things have been successful. You've been winning for a long time, right? So hopefully,
I'm tired of watching bureaucrats and politicians run our state and not fix problems and not do things for other people. And we got to do something for ourselves.
Yeah. And that's a good point too. That's sometimes you stand and watch, and you've had enough, and now's the time that you've had enough. And maybe that's why the fighting governor moniker is ready, right? You're ready to fight for the state and ready to go.
Exactly right. And the crazy thing is, it's kind of funny how this thing all took full circle. So you and I were just going to talk about fighting and working out and bad habits and good habits and that kind of stuff. But here we are. You can tell what I'm really thinking and focused about.
Yeah, well, absolutely. This is probably one of the better conversations I had. I can tell that it's a passion, right? Like, besides the fighting, we have that in common. But listen to you talk is a passion, and that excites me. Like, anybody that it comes, I don't care if you're making furniture. If you come at me and you're talking passionately about that, all of a sudden I'm in. I'm like, really? Mm-hmm. That's how you do that? All right, let's go. Right. And I feel now.
Or I make chairs.
Exactly.
That ain't gonna inspire anybody. But if you're like, I make the best chair.
Yes.
And here's how I do it, and here's why it is. It's how we communicate, man.
Exactly. You're not just a chair maker. You're changing people's lives for the better, giving them a place to sit, and all those things, right? And that's what we're hearing now. Well, I'm excited for it, man. Like, all the other stuff besides, I think just looking at this conversation, I mean, honestly, besides the governor stuff, is I think there's pearls of wisdom for everything: how to manage your life, how to deal with stress, how to do healthy things, and how to enact change. If you're not happy, get up and do something about it. Don't just keep bitching about it. Get up, do something, make a change. And if nothing else, you're doing what you need to do. And you know that when it's all said and done, you gave everything you got. You didn't just sit back and let things fall apart.
That's why I like guys like Jordan Peterson and David Goggins. They're literally saying, okay, you got a problem. What are you going to do about it? Stand up and fix it. Don't just complain about the problem.
Yes.
I
got time for those complainers, right?
Exactly right. I don't know if you follow David Goggins on Instagram. Yeah. That guy's a hoot.
He's great. Yes. Yeah. Stay hard, MFer, and all the other stuff, right? God. If you listen to David Goggins and don't get pumped up, there might be something wrong with you.
Oh yeah. You could be, out in the parking lot turning over Volkswagens by the time I'm done,
Yeah, absolutely. His books are unstoppable, or everything about that guy. I mean, and that's what I'm looking for. Like, honestly, same conversation. I'm looking for inspiration in my life. I'm looking to share inspiration. I'm looking to share ideals. To make myself better, but to make us this group of crazy people that listen to us and follow us, we all can make each other better. So that's what I'm hoping we do today.
That's the whole point, man. And leave it better than you found it.
Yes, that's
every action you take throughout the day. Leave it better than you found it.
Yeah,
you start doing that and focusing on that. It's crazy what happens, inside of the universe when it comes to what comes back to you.
Yeah.
I learned a long time ago running businesses, when you focus on just the top line and the bottom line, you can get results, but if you focus on doing for others and service and making an impact in everything you touch and leaving it better than you found it, then and doing good for the community and doing good for your people, like, it comes back tenfold. It's just, and it just does.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I think that's a good way to end it, man. I think something we got to look forward to, or make a change, right? Go out and do something for other people, not just yourself, and it'll come back to you. And, if we all do something, we'll make a world better place all together.
That's exactly right. I mean, that's the whole point behind parenting too, right? Our job's to make our kids better human beings than we are.
Yes.
And if that happens every single generation, it's crazy what could happen to the human race. But it's like, starts at home, starts with us, and that's the impact that we get to make on our family and on our kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I look forward to some great things. And then tonight, hopefully we'll see some good action. And let's hope that you get a bigger ovation tonight than you did in Huntington. So this will be good.
We're going to find out. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'll start some secret chants. I'm going to start working on it right now. So it'll be good. Yes, exactly. Well, man, I appreciate you taking some time out for today, man. Like, honestly, I appreciate it. Let's have some fun tonight, and then obviously have a good weekend. It's Mother's Day tomorrow. Oh, yeah. So happy Mother's Day to all the moms, and let's have a good weekend.
Happy Mother's Day, and man, thanks for having me on. It's always good to catch up and talk. We need to do it again, Butch.
Yeah. All right, man. I appreciate you, and have a good rest of your day, and all the love, man.
Awesome.
All right. See you, buddy.
See you, man.